great question, the greatest of all questions, has been asked by humanity for countless ages. Is there a God? From the point of view of religion, it is accepted on faith that there is a God, a divinity, who is called the Father of man and of the universe. But human beings are not satisfied with believing on faith. They want to know, to have irrefutable proofs of the existence of divinity. Therefore has it become the task of science to investigate the matter and find an answer to this question, an answer which will satisfy the searching of the rational mind. And science has solved the problem nobly. Through scientific investigation, it was discovered that there is a universal force, which may be termed eternal energy, primal energy, pervading the whole universe, filling infinite space. If primal energy fills infinite space for one moment, it becomes at that moment one with space. And if it is one with space for one moment, it must be one with space for eternity, because there is no place where it can lose itself. Therefore, by logical reasoning, the basic energy of the universe is found to be infinite, and at the same time eternal, has always been and always will be so. Through further investigation, it was discovered that infinite energy expresses itself in most admirable laws, sublime laws, that it shows the profoundest intelligence and logic, a self-consciousness expressed in the divinest terms. Laws invariable, true to themselves, mathematically correct, and above all, harmonious and beautiful. As a result of all this reasoning, was discovered, through its first universal manifestation as primal energy, that which has always existed, the eternal unmanifest called God, conscious of its own power, law-emitting, law-abiding, and most harmonious. In other words, there is a unit, a one, existing eternally, expressing itself through its creation, the universe, consciously governing it, sustaining it in a condition of eternal harmony, and loving it, for harmony and love are one. Harmony means attraction. Love is attraction. Thus science has discovered divinity under another name. Therefore for the word God, which would have been used in religion or philosophy, will be substituted a word having a deeper meaning, covering broader ground, the word principle. The word principle is not related especially to divinity, but applies equally to every science, logic, activity and art, as the principle of music, the principle of mathematics, etc. The word principle gives a clearer idea of the great first cause, of divinity, than does the word God. The word itself cannot be exhausted by its various definitions, and if instead of a few definitions, we should give 10,000, the whole ground would not have been covered. Yet there are 5 words which characterize the word principle in general, including principle as applied to the great first cause divinity, the great principle. Scientific definition of the word principle. Principle is that which creates, constitutes, governs, sustains and contains. All these 5 words include all the various lesser definitions. What must principle do first? First it must create, because it cannot handle anything before it has created the very thing it has to handle. Thus the first activity of each principle, no matter if it is the principle of music or of mathematics or of anything else, must be creation. The principle of music creates notes, the principle of mathematics creates numbers, etc. But creation does not inevitably mean order. It may be chaos. So that there should be order, it must constitute, that is, assigned to each phenomenon its proper place which it will keep eternally. With numbers, the activity of constitution demands that 1 is made 1, 2 is made 2, 3 is made 3, etc. And each has its proper place. 2 can never lapse into 3, or 3 can never become 4. They are all immutable. It is only because they are what they are, eternally, immutably, that we can calculate at all mathematically. The most complicated, intricate calculations are possible only because each cipher has its place assigned, constituted in order out of chaos. What is the next activity of principle? It must bring forth out of itself its laws, changeless laws, by which it governs that which it has created and that which it has put in order, constituted. These laws are then named. There are, for example, the laws of mathematics. Through the application of these laws we attain the invariable result of our calculations. If we misapply the laws, we make mistakes. This applies equally to music, to logic, etc. But the acts of creation, constitution, and governing may be for but a moment. There is nothing in these 3 activities which ensures their continuance. After principle has created, constituted, and governed, it must sustain its very creation so as to make it permanent, eternal. And finally, if principle creates everything there is out of itself, it must then contain within itself all its creation. It must be the father of its creation. It must be the circumference, from within which springs all creation. And since principle from its own center creates all and becomes its own circumference, therefore, it is the center and circumference of all. Principle is all. So it is with the great principle, the great first cause, whom we call divinity, or God. From eternity out of itself the great principle created the universe, including man and everything else in the universe. From eternity it assigned to each created thing its proper place. Every blade of grass has its place, every star knows its course. And as long as all keep their places and perform their duties, the law of order in the universe continues to operate. But if they should slip from their places or fail in their duties, there is chaos. The law of order and harmony is transgressed. After it has assigned to everything its proper identity, its individuality, it issues from itself the universal, changeless laws, which then govern them. Everything down to the smallest electron is governed by its laws, laws as precise, as invariable, as mathematical as the laws of mathematics itself. For mathematics is part of its creation and is therefore subject to its laws. Nothing can be above or beyond these laws, for they are a manifestation of the eternal activity of the great principle itself. The whole activity of the great principle is its power to sustain. It pours out all life and energy from itself, and sanctions and supports its own life, intelligence, laws and love so that they will exist with it eternally. From it proceeds all. And lastly, as the mother bird covers her fledglings with her wings, so the great principle enfolds all creation within its boundless protection and love. It contains the whole universe and therefore may be said to be in a way greater than its own creation. Yet it is identical with creation, for creation is the exact counterpart of the great principle, the eternal unmanifest, of which we perceive but the manifestation. No one has seen the great principle, the unmanifest, at any time. We perceive and appreciate it only through its manifest laws. The universe is the manifestation and the scientific, actual proof of the existence of the great principle. To this present state of human consciousness, the great principle appears in four distinct aspects: life, mind, truth, love. They are in a certain scientific order. They have been so eternally and cannot be changed. It has been said, God is first, love. But one cannot love if one does not already live, and even divinity itself cannot reverse such a sequence. The great principle is first. It must first live and then it can think. It must first live and then it can express truth, law. It must first live and then it can love. The first aspect of the great principle, life. What comes next? Mind. For life must become conscious of itself, conscious of its own existence. If it were not conscious of itself, life might be said not to exist completely. But it is able to say, I think, therefore I am. Next must come truth, law. The self-conscious life must be true to itself eternally, law-mitting, law-abiding, since it can only work harmoniously when it is true to itself. And finally, what must be last? It must be love, harmony. For if life were not capable of love, of harmony, it would be set against itself, repelling instead of attracting, self-hating and therefore self-destructive. Love and harmony are synonymous terms. Love is the law and also the fulfilling of the law. It is love alone that sets the seal of eternity on all. It is love alone that justifies eternity and makes it what it should be, a blessing. Without love, eternity would be the most terrible hell imaginable. For it is only when we know that there will be everlasting harmony that we can face eternity. And the only guarantee of eternal harmony lies in the fact that the great principle itself must love eternally, in order to maintain throughout eternity its own existence. That is why we cling to love to the very last, when all else, life and mind and even truth, have apparently failed us. Love is not first in order but in importance. Whatever else may be achieved will be of no use without love, for it is the beauty and radiance and joy of the universe. These are the four aspects of the great principle. They are instantaneous and simultaneous, yet expressed in their logical order. This order cannot be changed. It is fundamental and scientific. Those four aspects of the great principle, as manifested in our lives, may be regarded as the four corners of a perfect square, and their mutual relations analyzed from a scientific point of view. Let us take the upper left corner, life. What does life face if we pass a line across the square diagonally? We find life facing truth. What does this mean? It must be true to itself. For if life is not expressed through activity, there is no hope possible for it. In order that there should be continued activity, energy manifested, thus making all else possible, life must be true to its own mission, to live. For this reason it faces truth. What has life on its right side? It has mind. The right side is always considered the dominant side, because it stands for the right. Therefore life has mind on its right side. This implies that life must be conscious of its own existence, of its own operations, of its own duties. For if it were not self-conscious, it could not achieve all that it should achieve. Upon the left side, life has love. This means that life must not only be constantly active, conscious of itself and its activities, but that in order to be eternal, it must also be a loving and harmonious life. It is the left side which is the side of the heart, the organ, the symbol of love. We come now to the lower left corner of the square, mind, and draw a line across the square diagonally. What does mind face? It faces love. This means that the mind's eternal duty is to be expressed first in love. It must interpret harmony, for without this nothing would be good in its work. Therefore, mind must always face love. This is the great lesson that mind has to learn, the lesson of love. What has mind on its right side? It has truth. This means that it must demonstrate truth, because mind had once perverted truth in his own nature. It is said of Satan that he was a liar from the beginning, and yet Satan is Lucifer, is mind. Therefore, the next lesson that mind must learn is to be true. Truth implies law, a constant reminder to mind to be law-abiding. For it was mind also that first violated the law. And upon the left side, mind has life. It must express activity. Mind must be operating, thinking. As that is a natural function for mind, it becomes a secondary duty. Hence mind has life on its left side. At the third corner of the square stands truth. What does truth face? It faces life, for truth must be lived. Truth which is not lived is not truth. For that reason, the first thing that truth has always to face is its own expression, its manifestation. Law, the corollary of truth, must be demonstrated, put into operation. The laws of the universe must be eternal and voicing themselves eternally, or the universe would sink into chaos. And what stands upon the right side of truth as its dominant power? Love. For truth, law, must prove itself to be ardent, compassionate, tender, a law of harmony and beauty. It must be radiant and great-hearted, not the cold, dry truth of the intellect. It is the burning truth of love. On the left side of truth stands mind. It signifies that truth must be expressed consciously. The law must be intelligently formulated. But those functions being natural to truth, mind is placed on the left side of it. And finally to the fourth activity of the great principle. What does love face? Love faces mind. Love manifests itself last, but is the most sublime of the four aspects. It is a power so great, a gift so precious, that it must never be wasted or misused. It must be used intelligently. For that reason it faces mind or the capacity of discrimination. Jesus said, "Cast not your pearls before swine." Do not squander love, the precious gift, on those who do not understand it. Jesus knew these laws, and the relation of these aspects of the great principle to each other. Therefore he warns us to be careful not to throw away this most wonderful treasure. So love must first face mind. What has love upon its right side? It has life. This means that love must be continually expressed in activity. If we do not live love, then we do not love. At its left side is truth. Love must be true to itself. But love is always true to itself. Truth, law, is a very secondary power for love, because by its own harmonious nature it is always law-abiding, always true to itself. The two greatest powers in the world, love and mind, are facing each other in the square. They are the two manifestations, the first dual emanations of the great principle, of divinity, Christ and Lucifer. Love expresses Christ. Mind expresses Lucifer. Satan was once called Lucifer, the carrier of eternal light. His eternal mate was Christ, the Anointed One. But mind in his pride had fallen, and Christ, love, to save the world, assumed the activities which had belonged to Lucifer and became both ideal love and perfect mind. Originally it was not so, and finally it will also not be so. There will come an adjustment, and the two counterparts will be reunited and become equal again. Mind comes to us and leads us to perfection, yet it cannot enter with us through the door of perfection, of heaven, for it is an exile from heaven. For the time being it is shut out, and because it is seemingly separated from the infinite principle, it cannot grasp infinity. It is only through intuition and through emotion, especially of the higher self, that we can become one with the great principle and rise into the highest vibrations, into the infinite all. Mind cannot bring us there. It is love, the Christ in our nature, that part of us which has never fallen and which has remained perfect eternally, which alone can lead us back to infinity. It is therefore our duty to work out of the limitations imposed on us by mind, the Lucifer principle in us, and to attune mind to the Christ principle in us. This redemption will unite again these two apparently diverse principles in eternal harmony. Now if equal lines are drawn from the four corners of the square upwards to a common point, the figure produced will be a pyramid. And if we work harmoniously and simultaneously from the four corners, life, mind, truth, and love, and extend these to one point, that point will symbolize spirit, the absolute, the all-inclusive principle from which everything proceeds and to which it finally returns. The ancient pyramid of the Egyptians, built so many centuries ago, meant this very thing. It meant divinity working from the four square of humanity, through life, mind, truth and love to its own apex, spirit. Geometrically it would be impossible to construct a perfect pyramid unless each side were equal to the others. The apex would never be reached if even one side failed in its proportions. So it is just as impossible from the point of view of the absolute law to reach spirit, if any one of the aspects of the great principle in us is at fault. The four sides must be harmoniously equal. None must fail or dominate the others. We should not concern ourselves too much about reaching the apex, spirit, if only we work conscientiously at harmonizing the four sides, for the law itself will look after the results of our work. We are building up the ground under ourselves in working out these four aspects of the great principle. For every time that we perform an action energetically, intelligently, accurately, and lovingly, we have placed beneath our feet a stratum that extends to the four angles of our square. Thus we have risen by this much, and gradually, using every activity performed with energy, intelligence, accuracy and love, as a step upwards, we shall rise nearer and nearer to that point which is spirit, and which is the final goal of all human endeavor. When we reach spirit, we do not ourselves know how we reached it. Nor do we need to know, for it works according to law, and all we must do is to let the law work with us and not concern ourselves with the fruits of our actions. If the work is good, the result will be good, according to the law of cause and effect. It is all so simple, and yet human beings so little understand it and wonder why their progress is stopped. Someone says, "I am so loving, so generous, I am willing to give everything. Why can I not rise?" Perhaps one of his qualities is not developed, one of the corners of his pyramid not properly built. The problem is to find out which one of the corners is underdeveloped. Let us take, for instance, any one of the little daily actions which all of us have continually to perform in our lives, not something which we especially like to do, but just an ordinary action which has more the character of a duty than of pleasure. And let us analyze how we perform that action. If we do it energetically, the life corner is strongly built. If we do it intelligently, the mind corner is properly represented. If we do it accurately, the corner of truth law is also well balanced. And if we do it lovingly, the love corner is then in harmony with the other three corners. But if we discover in the actions we analyze that some of those four qualities are too weak in comparison with the strong, all we have to do is to reinforce the weak characteristics in order that they should strike a proper balance with the strong. Now by one of those ordinary actions of ours, we can find out the whole of our character. Just as by analyzing a drop of water taken from a pool, we are able to discover all the qualities of the water of the whole pool. In correcting the weak sides in those little daily actions of ours, we will by and by improve our whole character and make it harmonious, thus properly building up our life pyramid. This will secure us a speedy progress in our individual evolution. The point is the consummation of perfect harmony from all sides. From these four basic corners, from the so-called human square, we rise to the divine point. If we look down from above, we find the four aspects, the manifestation below. And if we look up from the four, we behold the one point, unity, the great principle, the unmanifest spirit. And thus we have also the correlation of numbers. We have the number 4 of our human square and the number 3 of the divine triangle represented in the side of the pyramid, 4 added to 3 making 7, a number of completeness. Besides that, by multiplying 4 and 3, we have 12, again a number of completeness, but manifesting it under a different aspect. 7 and 12 play a very important role in our present stage of evolution. When we realize these aspects of the great principle, our duty is naturally to manifest them in our lives, to live the 4 aspects. What does it mean to live life? Of course, we are all living. To live life means much more than that. It means to do always one's duty at the right time. Now most human beings do not at all do their duty at the right time. They have no idea of the necessity of doing it at the right time. Imagine an orchestra playing. The duty of each musician, according to the laws of orchestration, is to sound his notes, to play his passage at a certain time. And if he and his fellow musicians do it properly, we have beautiful and harmonious music. But if each musician were to play his notes a little earlier or a little later, what would happen? There would be discord. In a way, man cannot play false, because all notes are true notes. But man can play false when he plays the right notes at the wrong time. This is the very thing we do when we individuals fail in our duties. We either do the right thing at the wrong moment, or else when the right moment comes, we forget our obligations. The result for us is discord. The discord which we create in this way is the most detrimental, because if our actions are maladjusted and ill-timed, we start new causes which will have their results at a given time. And if the causes are started at the wrong time, the effects also will come at the wrong time. Hither way we plant the seeds of disharmony, and for that very reason so often we do not seem adjusted to our lives, and find that things continually happen to us in a disharmonious way. Our days are made up of a number of small events, some of which are seemingly important, some of no importance. But there is usually something that does not work properly, and the cause of it is an action hidden in the past. we had not performed our duty at the right time. We must always see if there is an obligation to meet, and we must not fail in it. If there is a greater duty to perform and a smaller one to perform, and we see that there is someone who is able to perform the smaller duty in our place, we are justified in leaving it and taking up the greater. But if there is no one to perform the smaller duty, and the smaller was the first to appear, we must accomplish that one first. For after all, it is nothing but a human concept of smallness or greatness. Everything is great in a way, and everything is small in a way. In a symphony, one note is not more important than another note. They are all equally important. The most delicate note is just as important as the deepest sounding one, because each has its proper place. Therefore, we must not forget that life is just as scientific as the music of an orchestra, and that if we want to live our lives harmoniously, we must play our part as conscientiously as we would in an orchestra. Life is one great orchestra. That is what is meant by living life, to do one's duty always at the proper time and never to worry about the result. The result will come right inevitably if we act rightly. There is a law that will show the way. When we shall know the law, we will move through our lives in serenity. Now, what does it mean to live life consciously, intelligently, to demonstrate mind in our life? Of course, we are all thinking people. Some of us are people of much knowledge, of great intellect. And yet to demonstrate intelligence, mind, in our lives means more than that. It means that we should always judge rightly, always keep to the main issues, always take the essential and give to the non-essential its proper place above all. It means that we should not lose ourselves in details, that we should retain a proper mental perspective, because to lose oneself in details is one of the besetting sins of humanity. If we wish to analyze a tree and come so near to it that we can see only the leaves, we will find that we have no right impression of the tree as a whole. The study of a leaf will not reveal the character of the tree. We must stand at some distance in order to see the complete tree. Then only is it possible to say there is the trunk, these are the branches, and these are the leaves. That is what we should do, and that is what so few of us do in life. We are usually losing ourselves in details, and giving to non-essentials a more important role than to essentials. To live intelligently means to give to each person and to each thing their proper place, to keep one's judgment clear and to try to judge as impartially as possible. In other words, to simplify things and not complicate them. The complexity of life in every direction is one of the greatest failings of the world, especially of our modern civilization. The great principle is the one point. There is nothing more simple than a point. At the same time, the great principle is a sphere. There is nothing more perfect, complete, and at the same time more simple than a sphere. It is perfection in absolute simplicity. Now, what does it mean to live truth? We are taught to be truthful, and we realize the offense of a deliberate lie. Yet to live truth is more than that. It signifies that we should mean always what we say. Most of us, human beings, do not mean at all in our conversation what we say. We usually say one thing and mean another entirely different. We say, "I love you so much that I would die for you." How many of us really mean this? With most, it is only a manner of talking. We live in such an age of exaggeration that when we come in contact with people who tell the truth, we do not always believe it. We have grown accustomed to discount the truth. people do not realize consciously the tremendous value of having the word correspond to the thought. In a certain passage of the sacred book called the Bible, a chapter begins, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." What does it mean? In the beginning existed the virtue of omnipotence, the power to manifest, to express itself, and it was with the great principle, and it was that great principle. Therefore is the word so tremendously powerful. A word should be a creation, should be law. How have we human beings used the word? As so many dead leaves, as so much worthless sound, as of no value. And this is a great loss for us because we are squandering one of the greatest powers in the universe, the power of truth. Therefore, to live truth is always to mean what we say. When we say it is day, we must mean it is day, and when we say it is night, we must mean night. And if for some reason we feel that we cannot tell the truth, it is better not to say anything than to tell a lie, because of the disconnection between the thought and the word. For thus both thought and word are rendered powerless. The law says that the effect must correspond to the cause. Therefore, in disconnecting the two, we are violating one of the fundamental laws, the law of the great principle, a law so potent in our hands. There is no compromise with the absolute. There is yet another point. We often tell untruths in jest. We do not mean it. We know it is an untruth and it is meant to be an untruth. We very often make fun of people and things without really meaning to be unkind or wishing to do harm. But there is a law which states that ridicule kills. If we make fun of something, we kill in the individual the sense of that something. If it is a good thing, something emanating from the source of perfection, it cannot be killed. But we can destroy in an individual his sense of that thing, which is the same as killing it in him. There is an orator who makes a speech full of intelligence and sincerity, and who impresses his audience with the power and beauty of his words. The opposing party can most easily destroy the effect of his speech by ridicule. A better or more noble speech would not as easily destroy it, but a few frivolous words of derision would make a burlesque of his speech, would make his audience laugh, and in that moment would destroy their sense of the value of the speech. Many know this power and use it. Many use the power and do not know it. It is important, therefore, to know that we can destroy whatever we want by ridicule, by laughing at it, but we must be careful that it is not something good or sacred to us. Ridicule and laughter are like a two-edged sword. They destroy in both directions. If we have something which is sacred to us and which we would keep sacred for ourselves, we should never let anyone make fun of it, because in ourselves it will be destroyed. It is the operation of the law. Nature has given us the gift of laughter to neutralize negative impressions, because there is so much disharmony around us, that if we did not have that gift we would be absolutely overwhelmed by disharmony. That is why, when we see something inharmonious, we laugh at it. If we were to take it seriously, it would not be destroyed and would harm us. And as we do not want that, as we want only harmony real to us, we laugh at disharmony and thus destroy our sense of it. And that is why we have theaters and other places where people can go and laugh and amuse themselves. Because this life is so strenuous that it would require a great deal of mental effort to throw off the disharmony from the mind. There is the easier way. We go and laugh it away. It seems that if we see something funny, we relieve ourselves of the burden. This gift which nature has given us, let us remember to be very careful in using. Last comes love, to live love, to manifest love in our lives. What does that mean? To love is natural to us because it is a basic law of nature. There is no one on earth who does not love somebody or at least something. There is the miser. He loves gold. He is supposed to be one of the most despicable of beings, yet he loves. Only he loves a metal. It is a precious metal, a noble metal, and he therefore loves it. Someday he may love an animal, a still higher concept of love, and finally he will love a human being. And again there are the various grades of human beings for him to love, always raising him higher and higher. Even the man who goes and steals something, who goes and kills somebody, why does he do it? Out of love for something. He wants to get that which is dear to him. That is a misapplication of love, for the perversion of which he will someday pay the penalty, but still it has love latent in it. Therefore, wherever we go, we shall never fail to find people loving something or somebody. But to love completely, to demonstrate love in our lives, is much more than that. It means that we should always try to feel loving to our fellow men, to express our love, nature every instant as much as we can. Give to the stranger the richness of thy smile is the gentle appeal of love. What does it mean? It means that we should give even to the stranger, whom we do not know, expressions of love. We all try to do our measure of good for our fellow beings, yet very often, in little things and things dear to the human heart, we omit gentleness, a smile. It is not the thing itself which counts, but the way the thing is done or the way it is given. One can give a little, simple gift with so much love in the way of giving that it will appear to he like the greatest treasure. And one can give away with the stroke of the pen a whole fortune, and people would take it because it is a fortune, but would not feel the preciousness in it. For it is the motive which counts, the love in the action. No matter what you do, if there is no love in your heart to support it, all your sacrifice is in vain, is a wonderful and scientific statement found in the Bible. We may give to the needy the most valuable gifts, yet if there is no love in what we do, all that is in vain. Love is that which, because of its constructive power, makes every service so precious. And that is why, especially in these days, we should always try to express the kindness we may feel to people. It is a very important thing that we should not keep love unmanifested, but should at every opportunity disclose it, show it forth, manifest it, be it in a word, in a smile, in a look or in a handshake. When he or she looks at you, you feel as if you have received a precious gift, is a very beautiful saying among the peasants in Russia. It means that one feels enriched by the simple look of an individual, regardless of whether it is a man or a woman, for sex does not make any difference. But the mere love, the richness of the look, makes one feel as if one had received something worth a great deal. That shows how valuable love is. All things can be bought. Love is the one thing which can never be bought. That is why it is really precious, and that is why we should never be ungenerous with it, because there is always enough for us to give. In fact, the more we give, the more there is to be given. Now that does not at all contradict what was said before in explaining the quadrangle, where love faces mind. One should not squander love as a special gift on those who are not worthy, but should radiate love as a general gift to enemies as to friends, alike to all. Just as the sun shines on the wicked as on the good, on the flower as on the weed, all things receiving the sun's rays equally, even if they do not make equal use of them.